Hello everyone, this is Sincere, a teacher Sincere's channel, and welcome. So I'm going to talk about some books that I've been reading recently, that I've just recently finished, and that I'm currently reading. I've decided, before I start talking about the books, I've decided that I will not be doing the Goodreads challenge probably anymore after this year. I'm up to date on it finally. I had been behind for a few months, but I'm finally up to date on the Goodreads reading challenge. But I felt like, is it necessary for my reading to be like competition? Reading should be enjoyable. It should be something that you want to do, that you're not feel like you're pressed to do. It should be something that you learn from. And so I've decided that this will be the final year that I will be doing the Goodreads reading challenge. I will, of course, continue to be on Goodreads and rate books and sometimes write reviews, but I don't feel that I should be pressed to have to be like I'm in a competition. But anyway, let's get started in talking about some of the books that I've recently finished reading and also that I'm currently reading. Now, it's been a slow year for me. I finally gotten caught up, like I said, and I'm currently reading 7 books. My goal of only reading about 3 books from 3 genres, it ended. I'm still up to 7 books, but and the books that I'm currently reading, I'm going to show you some of them. Some of them I have in hard copy, and the others I'm reading as ebooks on my Kindle. Now I'm going to start first with the first book that I finished reading recently. I finally finished reading from the Oscar Wilde collection, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I gave it a 5-star rating on Goodreads. Now, I really enjoyed The Picture of Dorian Gray. It took me forever to read it because there were weeks that I would go not reading this year. I had so much I had to do. I've been trying to change around, and how was I going to organize the hours that I'm teaching online. I took on more students, it hasn't been a good year of reading this year, and there have been like 3 books that I gave like 3 stars, which is low for me, because generally if I really love a book, I'm going to give it 5 stars, no less than 4 stars. And then also there was one book that I started reading that I didn't finish. I got almost halfway through, but I felt like the book was more for someone that was a specialist in the area. I think the book was called, I'm looking at my computer, the book was called, The Bible Was Written in Arabia. Interesting premise, but I don't know enough about the pronunciation and how they organize the letters in Semitic languages to really get deeply into this book. You needed a good map for it. It was more like a book for a specialist, and it just I hate it when I have to stop a book, but sometimes that's just how it is. You're not going to always enjoy a book that you're reading. So this is what happened. I had to put it aside. I got about halfway through it, and it was like, it's no more. I can't take this, okay? Because I would basically need to have a map of the Arabian Peninsula right in front of me, and also have an understanding of how Arabic and Hebrew works, which I only have just like a tiny, minute understanding of how those languages work, the linguistics of those languages, okay? All right, so let's go on to talking about a little bit about The Picture of Dorian Gray. Now, getting back to The Picture of Dorian Gray, like I said, I gave it 5 stars. I really liked it. The language was very elegant. It was witty, elegant, philosophical, tragic, and the premise of the book was based around Dorian Gray. He's an extraordinarily handsome young man, and his best friend Basil, who's an artist, paints a portrait of him. Dorian was looking at the photo, at the painting, and he started thinking, if only I could stay young forever and never age. Okay. And that is the beginning of his downfall. When he makes this vow, he wants to never ever age. And so I'm not going to tell you much more. I'm not going to give you any spoilers too much more about the book, but it's a wonderful book. Now it might not be everybody's cup of tea. This book was written in the 1800s, so the language is not difficult, but it's elaborate. So if you don't like, if you just like just straightforward, very basic language, you might not like this book, but it's not a difficult read. Wilde's sentences are not very long. Like some of these older books, like if you read Dickens, the sentences can be like like half the page is one sentence. But this is not the case with The Picture of Dorian Gray. The language is simple but elegant, and it talks about life, the tragedy of life, the upper classes, the vices of the upper classes of that time during Victorian times, and it's just an overall good book. I liked it. It was a very I've gotten to this point in my life where I like more philosophical materials. The second book that I finished this week was a book called The Other Windsor Girl, a novel of Princess Margaret, Royal Rebel by Georgie Blaylock. And here is the cover. This is the library copy. You can see the barcode up here. So this is not my personal copy. But this was a much more lighter read. And this was a historical biographical novel of the late Queen Elizabeth II's younger sister, Princess Margaret, who was a socialite, didn't go along with, she rebelled against the system. She tried to, at least. And she married a man that was lower class, wasn't part of the nobility. She finally got her way and was able to marry him. But this novel was told from the viewpoint of Vera Strathmore. Vera Strathmore is the main character along with Princess Margaret. And Vera is from an upper class aristocratic family that's sort of down on their luck. They no longer have any money. Their parents are kind of bitter old fogies. And what has happened to Vera is her fiance has been killed in World War II. So from the very beginning of the book, she's grieving over him. She's not going around crying or anything, but she's thinking about him. He's really on her mind. And as things go, she ends up very unexpectedly end up being a lady in waiting to Princess Margaret. Now, before this was happening, to sort of pacify herself, she was going around, writing novels under a pseudonym. These were the little scandalous novels under the pseudonym of Mrs. Lavish. Okay. And how she attracted Princess Margaret's attention was Princess Margaret actually had been reading some of the novels, and she decided that she wanted to have Vera become her one of her ladies in waiting. And so I at first I didn't like the book so much because it was just constant going to parties. It started out basically with a party, and Vera was talking to one of her relatives, Colin, and it was just half the book was just going to one party after another. And I've never been a party person. I don't like that kind of lifestyle. Dinner party is nice, but just going to parties where it's drinking and dancing, and that's never been my kind of thing. I don't like that kind of stuff. So even when I was a young person, I still don't. But as the book went on, it got more, I think it got a little bit more into the psychology of Vera. Also, Princess Margaret, who's very spoiled, just a little girl lost. I'm looking at the clock because I'm recording this before I have before I have a student coming. I have a student coming in about 15 minutes. And I'll have to continue with my recording later. But anyway, Princess Margaret doesn't know what to do with herself. Her older sister, Elizabeth, has gotten married to Prince Philip. She's settled down. All of Princess Margaret's friends are settling down, and she's not ready to settle down. And she doesn't want other people to settle down. She wants everybody to have a good time, and, go to parties and, dress up nice and, all that, and have little superficial romantic entanglements and, that kind of thing. That's where she wants the kind of lifestyle she wants to live. And so it goes on and talks about different things, and I don't want to give spoilers about it. But at first, I had mixed feelings about the book because, like I said, this is a light read. I was curious about the book. It was not on my to read list for this year. But I decided that I knew about the book, and I learned about it through Goodreads, and I said, hey, I want to read it. So in the beginning, I started reading it on the Libby app, and the Libby app is a library app that's if your library here in the United States is participating in it, you can actually read ebooks on the app. So I started out reading the book on the app, and I checked it out 3 times, and then somebody else took it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to get a copy of it, a hard copy of it. So that's what I did. So in the end, I ended up giving it 3 stars, not because it was badly written, but it was like 3 stars on Goodreads is, I liked it. It's not terrible, but I liked it. So I didn't really care a whole lot about the characters. If you like the type of sassy, subtly oversexed character that the author made Princess Margaret out to be, she's a drinker, smoker, she's elegant, but she was totally opposite of her sister. And so if you like that kind of character, sort of rebellious characters, this might be your kind of book. Now, Vera is much more quiet, much more, she's much more sedate. I kind of liked her character a little bit better. I felt like they could have made her, Miss Blaylock could have made her a little bit more not so quiet. Maybe a little bit more opinionated. She only becomes more opinionated near the very end of the book. But she's a quiet type. She's an introvert, it seems like. And she has a slightly rebellious side, but she's not open about it the way Princess Margaret is. I liked it that she was, a writer. She loves writing. I've written 1 book. I have 2 other books that I'm sort of waiting in the wings that I have. So I liked her character for that reason somewhat. But I just didn't care about the characters enough to give the book at least a 4 stars. But it was an okay book. If you like a light read and you enjoy something like The Crown or something about royals, this might be your kind of book. Now, I have this strange quirkiness, okay? I might love a book, but it might take me weeks or months to finish it. Okay, and some of that has to do with, me working. Sometimes I love reading. I just adore it. It helps me to relax. It helps me to learn. But sometimes books will I will get on a book that I absolutely love and still take forever to read it. And that basically what happened with Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray was not a long book. It's also happening with this one as well. This is Najib Mahfouz's 3 novels, Midaq Alley, The Thief and the Dogs, and Miramar. Now, I recently finished up Midaq Alley, it was either earlier this week. I basically finished 3 books this week, I think. It's 2 for sure, but it might have been the end of last week. But I finished Midaq Alley. I had already read The Thief and the Dogs, and I've started Miramar. Okay, so I'm a fan of Najib Mahfouz's writing. It's very cinematic. Midaq Alley, I enjoyed it. It just basically was about the different inhabitants that lived in Midaq Alley, everywhere from old men to one rebellious young woman that drifted into prostitution. Well, she didn't drift it. Well, she kind of drifted into prostitution. The young man that loved her and was betrayed by her. So it was. I really enjoyed Midaq Alley. I enjoyed The Thief and the Dogs, and I'm just getting started with Miramar. So I will probably talk about it in a later video. But yeah, Najib Mahfouz was a Nobel Prize winner back in the 1990s. He was from Egypt. So this is a collection by him. Another book I started actually on Internet Archive, and I decided that I liked it so much that I wanted my own copy of it, was the book The Reformation of Morals by Yahya Ibn Adi. So I got a copy of it from abooks.com. It's a short book. It's written in both English and Arabic. If you look at, I'll open up and let you see. If you look at one side, so you can see here, on one side you have the English and the other side the Arabic translation. So who was Yahya Ibn Adi? Yahya Ibn Adi was an Assyrian or Syriac philosopher. He lived, I have to go and look, I'm checking I have my computer here as a reference, okay? But Yahya Ibn Adi lived from 893 to 974. He was a Syriac Jacobite Christian philosopher, theologian, and translator working in Arabic, okay? So he was around Arab people. He lived in Iraq. He was born in Iraq. He was actually actually born in Tikrit. Tikrit is considered like the hometown of Saddam Hussein. And in that area, centuries and centuries ago, there were a lot of Christian people, okay? And so Yahya ibn Adi, his full name was Abu Zachariah Yahya ibn Adi. He was a philosopher. He was Syriac, and he translated, and I'll read a little bit from this. Yahya ibn Adi was born in Tikrit, modern-day Iraq, to a family of Syriac Jacobite Christians in 893. In Baghdad, he studied philosophy and medicine under Abu Bashir Mata ibn Yunus, who had also taught al-Farabi, who was another famous who was a famous Arab philosopher. He translated numerous works of Greek philosophy into Arabic, mostly from existing versions in Syriac. These included Plato's Laws, Aristotle's Sophistical Refutations, and Topics by Hanan Ibn Ishaq, and Theophrastus's Metaphysics. He also composed a number of philosophical and theological treatises, the most significant being, and it's in Arabic, I'm not going to try to read it, okay? It's actually two, it looks like Tahib al-Akhlaq and Makala fi al-Tawhid. He taught a number of Christian and Muslim students, including and they mentioned some of his students. And he died in 974 and is buried in the Syriac Church of St. Thomas in Baghdad. So he's actually buried in Baghdad, okay? So if you go to Baghdad, you can probably see his tomb. But yeah, this book was very, very interesting. It's a philosophical book, no doubt. It's about morals, okay? He starts out talking about how most people, that the world is made up of mostly evil people, and the minority are decent people, good people, and the evil ones dislike the good people. And he talks about our responsibility of trying to perfect ourselves, not stay in the swamp of being mediocre and wicked, but to try to rise to a higher level. And some of this also, you'll see this kind of thinking in also Orthodox Christianity, and it's also in regular Christianity. We're not supposed to just stagnate and stay in a fallen, just completely destroyed state, okay? I know a lot of people do, but we're not supposed to. But I really like this book. I'm not finished with it yet, but I will probably make a little bit of commentary, perhaps, maybe, in a future video about this book. Another book that I put down on Goodreads is currently reading, but I haven't started it yet, actually, but I am going to start it probably tonight. This one is called Blindness by Jose Saramago, okay? It's likely Jose because he's Portuguese. He was Portuguese, and I know with Brazilian Portuguese, dealing with Brazilian students, the J, they pronounce it J. Unlike in Spanish, you have the same spelled name. It's Joseph in English, but they say Jose, the Spanish pronunciation, whereas Portuguese, or at least Brazilian Portuguese people, say they say Jose, and it's Jose Saramago. So this book, Blindness, is a dystopian novel. It's about blindness comes over this town. I think physical blindness, and I'm wondering if this blindness is sort of like a reflection of the people's inner state. Because we can have inner blindness. We may not be physically blind, but we can have a lot of inner blindness. And I really want to read this book because I want to find out, is that also their physical blindness? Is it a metaphor of their spiritual or physical blindness? Now, Saramago, I don't know if he goes that deep. Maybe he does. He was an atheist, so I don't think he's going to see things probably the way I would. But I'm really looking forward to this book. There were people on my Goodreads page. This book was quite popular, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. Particularly with some of the Arab students. And then there's a young black woman from Canada that's my good friend. She's currently reading it. And so I had planned to read this book for several years. And so I said, why not? I should go ahead and read it. It was not on my planned books to read this year, but I decided that I'm going to go ahead and go for it. So I will be hopefully in an upcoming video talking about and giving my impressions of Blindness by Jose Saramago. He got the Nobel Prize also. He was another Nobel Prize winner, and he got it back in, I think, 1998. Other books that I'm reading that I'm going to quickly talk about, go through, just fly through very quickly, I'm reading Rashomon and Other Stories. These are a collection of short stories by Rinosuke Akutagawa, who was a famous Japanese short story writer. He was the father of the Japanese short story. And let's see, he lived, when did he live? Let's check very quickly. He was born in 1892 and died in 1927. He committed suicide, but he was one of the first pre-war Japanese writers to achieve a wide foreign readership, partly because of his technical virtuosity, partly because his work seemed to represent imaginative fiction as opposed to the mundane accounts of the eye novelists of the time, partly because of his brilliant joining of traditional material to modern sensibility, and partly because of film director Kurosawa Akira's powerful adaptation of two of his short stories for the screen. So Rashomon was actually made into a movie years ago. So I just started reading this collection of stories by him. And yeah, so that is Rashomon and Other Stories by Rinosuke Akutagawa. Okay. Next, I've been on this one for quite a while. This is a Christian book, easy to read, by Beth Moore, called Praying God's Words, Breaking Free from Spiritual Strongholds. So I've been reading this one for quite a while. I've been putting more time on a much more difficult Christian text, actually, St. Augustine's City of God. Now, this is easy read, but St. Augustine's City of God is not an easy read. But I like this one, but I enjoy St. Augustine's even more because it's really exercising the brain up here, really exercising everything. The last book that I'm going to mention in my that I'm reading in my current reading little collection that I'm reading is the book Freelance Writing Guide: What to Expect in Your First Year as a Freelance Writer by Christine Rice. Not Kristen Rice, but Christine Rice, and I'm actually reading it on Kindle. It's not a very long book, but it's a useful book. It's a handy little book. It gives some very good practical advice. It's easy to read, very straightforward. Only thing is, the book was actually published. Let's see, when was it published? It was published in 2012, so it's been. Now, this is 2023. It's been over 10 years. And some of the websites that they mentioned in it are no longer active. Websites where you could actually create a portfolio and, leave your writings for the public. But the thing about freelance writing is one thing that you can do if you are doing freelance writing. If you want to see future clients and for people to see how you write, you can start a blog and write on it regularly and write about a variety of things, okay? Or you could maybe take one type of subject matter, like my interest is books, so maybe I could do like a blog of just focusing on giving book reviews. Now, I have had several blogs over the years. I currently have a blog that's open online, the Hinterlands blog, but I haven't written on it in like over 3 years. But I plan to get it back possibly active again. Another website that's new that people can also use to build up a portfolio is medium.com. Medium, it's just a small fee, about $4.99 a month. I'm thinking about probably opening up a subscription and posting my writing on there. And if I do get it up and running, I will share some of my writing on my community page. They also talk about self-publishing books as well and about marketing. Okay, but it's quite a useful book, even though particularly with some of the links to the websites, those websites are kind of dated. So yeah, so you would have to look for some other websites that would be good. And like I said, particularly for portfolio building, start a blog. I've always blogged on Blogger. I haven't used WordPress before. When I was blogging. And also medium.com is another one that's a good place to, you know, write different articles, write different things, and then you can use those for future clients to get sort of a sampling of how you work. All right, so I'm going to end here. This is, so I told you about a little bit of what I've told you a good bit rather about what I'm currently reading. Probably in my next video, my tentative plan is to do a book haul of some books that I've collected over the last few months. Now, if you recall from earlier video, I've said I don't have any room to put anything else, any other books, and I don't, okay? But I have been doing a little bit of book hauling on the side. I've been doing a little bit from 3 different places, okay? So I find somewhere, somehow, to stick books in the corner, but I don't know, maybe this winter, I had planned back a couple of years ago that I was going to go and do sort of an inventory of all of my books, because I have books not only back here behind me, but just all over the place in the house. And also I have books in storage, in boxes. So I really would like to find out actually how many books that I do own. Okay, this is not Kindle books, because there are a lot of books on my Kindle, a lot of books on my Kindle. And yeah, and I read, I don't do audio books like I mentioned earlier, but I read Kindle books, books on Internet Archive, and also the real the actual or the hard copy of books. But anyway, I'm going to end here. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. So this is Sincere. Until next time.